That was easy. We hit
Yeah.
the thing and it just automatically brings it back in. Hi, we're here.
Hey
It's
there.
Thursday, March 7th. We're hanging out, and today was the first episode of Cloud Foundry Weekly. That was fun.
Right. It was.
Spring is always on the top of my mind, and yeah, we both have this Cloud Foundry and being the best place to run Spring and get us there, and then we can just like worry about our code. But we've been doing Cloud Foundry for a long time, and right, and there's some workloads that maybe didn't get all the attention that they needed, and we run into that. So what do? How do we handle that? How
Yeah.
do we make sure that the stuff that's running in production is okay? How do we find out what's running in production? That's a hard enough
Right.
problem. What do we do here?
Yeah. It's a good space to be in, right? It's a happy day for an operations team or an operator running a fleet of Cloud Foundry foundations, huh?
Yes,
Bunch of fun. And so, yeah, that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to use our time to talk about. And I wanted to tee something up here. So give me a moment and I'll share my screen. And let's
so
just do everything.
for those of you in the audience, Chris has been a kind of a inspiration for a long time. He created a tool that I think is pretty well known in the Cloud Foundry ecosystem called CF Butler. And there's some various other tools around it, but CF Butler was and continues to be a super valuable tool. So he's been a key part of the ecosystem, and he's been an inspiration. I've been a fan for a long time, and
Thank you.
yeah, and now we're here. What's
Appreciate it.
next? Bring us into the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Um, I I got a little something I want to just tool through here. So
All
let's
right, I'm
start with
going
a
to bring it up.
premise.
I'm going to bring this up.
Hopefully my screen is sharing. You can see it.
I can see the screen. Yep.
Perfect. So let's just start with a premise that you're an operator. You're on a platform team and you're operating one or more Cloud Foundry foundations. And on each foundation, you know, you have one or many applications running on one or many organization and spaces, right? So the hypothesis that some portion of your portfolio is job applications. And of these job applications, hopefully a good many of them are built with Spring Boot.
I would like that.
And go ahead. Do you want to
I
say
said I would
something,
like that.
Deshaun?
I would
Yeah, I
love
would
it
like
if
that too.
most of your job applications were running Spring Boot.
Right.
Like make your life easier.
Uh, but I think we know this that a lot of enterprises they struggle with keeping up to date. So there's likely some tech debt. There may be some out of support um, open source dependencies, and there may even be some CVs running them up. So the platform team, some curious individual on the team is tasked with trying to understand like how are we doing? How well are we serving our community of product teams? How well are we governing our estate so that our CISO is sleeping well at night?
Sleeping, right?
Um,
Like that's all we ask. We just want our CISO to be able to sleep. That's not too
right.
much.
Yeah. So, what would it be like if we could understand that? Like, we could ask each of the foundations questions that would, sort of highlight some of these areas for us.
When you say
And then,
foundations,
yeah.
what do you mean
And
by
then
foundation?
foundations is a Cloud Foundry foundation, right? I'm
Okay.
going to actually get to a picture here. I've got some more stuff
Okay.
I want to share to kind of conceptualize this a little bit. Um, but then just you know, folks who know anything about anything in Cloud Foundry, um, the question would be asked of them: uh, did you know that that container that's running in Cloud Foundry with your application was built with a droplet? Right, it's essentially a container image, and that the way that that droplet got built was by a build pack, right? And there's a Java build pack, and inside that droplet is the artifacts, right? It's the stuff that was built with Java. You might have used Maven, you might have used Gradle, maybe you're using Ant or some other newfangled build system that, anyhow,
But
doesn't matter.
the foundation takes care of the build. So what you give the foundation is just, here's my source code.
Right.
Here's how you build it. Like, that's it.
Right.
And then the
Or
foundation
the
takes care of the
Java
rest.
artifact that you might have built elsewhere, right?
Okay.
Like you might have built the Java artifact outside of Cloud Foundry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now this is unwinding things. Prior to there must be some version of Cloud Foundry where we started to think about making use of different build packs. Like there's the Cloud Foundry build packs, and then there's these cloud native build packs, and that might represent a little bit of a detour. But my understanding is that in later versions of Cloud Foundry, you now can use cloud native build packs, and that for Java applications at least allows you to provide source rather than a jar file to get deployed.
You can do both. You can do both. The value of the build pack is it does the detect phase. Like, hey, what do I got? Did you give me source code? Did you give me a pom.xml? Or did you give me a jar file? Right? So you can put some of these smarts into your build packs.
Yeah, for sure. But so inside, the point I'm trying to make is inside that droplet is everything you need to run the application, including all the dependencies. So that then tees up the next thing that I want to get to.
I'm going to try a different view here so I can see a little bit better. Let me see if I can move this.
Let's see if that comes into view. So this is a little bit of like a day in the life, right? You're a developer. You're working with, let me see if I can get my laser working here. This is something I just found out about in Excalidraw. So here's your source repo, right? And you do a git pull and you bring it down to your workstation and you've got your source. And maybe you're working on a new feature, or you're fixing a defect, or you're upgrading dependencies, at which point you build. And that produces a Java artifact. Now, how do you get this artifact into Cloud Foundry? Well, the magic of CF push. I love CF push. And when that happens, underneath the covers, Cloud Foundry marries your artifact with a build pack. It detects it, like Deshaun was saying earlier, and creates you a droplet. This is essentially a container image. And that container image gets deployed on some available system resources. You can think of kind of like these inner boxes. There's another box that I haven't drawn here of, hey, this is a Diego cell, which is essentially a VM. And inside that VM are a number of containers, right? And one of those containers happens to be your application. And Cloud Foundry is a multi-tenant, what do you call? It has multi-tenancy capabilities built into it, right? So you can organize your applications into buckets like organizations and spaces, right?
And one of the things is like the multi-tenancy, right? It's not easy. And Cloud Foundry does multi-tenancy really, really well, right? There's VMs under the covers, and we can do hard multi-tenancy as opposed to softer container namespacey multi-tenancy. Yeah. I really like this laser feature that you're doing.
Yeah, I like it too.
Thank you for showing me that.
So here we have an app, and I'll get to what CF Butler is here in a moment. But suffice to say, this app, like any other app you would deploy on Cloud Foundry, runs on Cloud Foundry, right, as an application. It's got some smarts built into it, and it's working with the CF or the Cloud Foundry API. So you can ask Cloud Foundry questions, right? And so what CF Butler does is it does this sort of like, it wakes up, it asks some questions and snapshots the results, and then it can do interesting things with those results. Those results happen to be snapshotted in a database, a MySQL database, which is a service instance. If you know anything about Cloud Foundry, you can take an application and bind it with a service, right? And so that's what's happening here. So great, you've got that. What would it be like if you could ask the question, hey, what Spring apps are running. So
Yes.
remember I talked about droplets, right? So it happens that if you've got the CFCLI installed on your workstation, you can execute a command, cf download droplet, which will download the container image to your workstation. And you can unpack it. It's just a tar file. That's all it is. And inside it is all this good stuff, right? It's organized in directories. And inside the app directory, there's a couple of subfolders. One of them happens to be if you happen to have
Wait,
built.
where's all the good? Oh, here we are. I didn't see the laser pointer. There's all the good stuff inside of the droplet.
Inside the app folder, there's a couple of subfolders. Here's basically the meta-inf Maven. So if you happen to have built your Java application with Maven, you will have the POM file that was used to build the application embedded in the droplet, as well as if you're using Spring Boot, you'll have all of the dependencies, right? So CF Butler happens to be, smart enough to do things like, hey, I'm going to go walk all the droplets and I'm going to fish out these POM files and I'm going to parse those POM files for dependencies, right? And tell you some things about Spring apps. Or it can be configured to look at just the jar files and look for Spring jars, right?
Okay,
It'll look
this
for
sounds
any
familiar.
jar file that starts with Spring, right?
Yep. Org.Spring framework.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly. Anything in the Spring ecosystem, right?
Okay.
And that's configurable, by the way. It doesn't have to just be Spring, but that for the purposes of this conversation, it's
Now, has this feature always been in CF Butler? The walking of the droplets?
This is a new feature. It was the brainchild of just some thought and conversation around something that we're doing. And this is where I didn't want to kind of step into work land, but I will do that briefly. So it's at Broadcom where Deshaun and I are employed. We have some pursuits with customers around the areas of just what I talked about, what the platform team is concerned with. It's, hey, how well are you keeping up to date with Spring? And did you know that if maybe you're hanging out on older versions of Spring and you still want support, you can buy commercial support, extended support for those versions that you're hanging out on until such time as you have the time and the energy and the priorities to update your application portfolio.
Because we want everybody to be updated. Like,
absolutely.
We don't want anybody running Java 8 anymore. We don't want anybody running Spring Boot 2.6 or 2.7 for that matter. Spring Boot 3.2 is out. And I think both of us are trying to help the community at large get to the latest and greatest. So you can have all the performance, security, all the other benefits, including the developer experience. We want you to be moving forward.
For sure.
But this gives me a little tool where I can help Cloud Foundry users see like how much work do they have.
Right.
Okay, that's a hard thing. It's like I think we got some Spring Boot 3 over there and some Spring Boot 2 over there, but a lot of orgs, right? You're not alone. A lot of orgs don't know what's running in production. Right? They know the business unit, they know the apps, and they know the mobile app and what they're called, but they don't know what's really running in production. And this tool,
that's it right there,
gives us some really interesting details, and it's been there the whole while, but you're exposing it for a specific reason. I like to quote somebody else, one of our VPs here at Broadcom, and Purnima said not too long ago, we're in this age where OpenAI can go from 0 to 100 million users in 4 months, and one of the world's most popular banks can be bankrupt in 2 days. Things are moving fast. Right?
That's true.
We don't have the luxury of doing updates every year or even every 6 months. Like that's a thing of the past. You're not going to survive. Right? Survival is not mandatory. You're not going to survive if you can't keep up. And this is a really valuable tool.
Yeah. So just kind of continuing the conversation, you can approach the problem, by, getting in there, rolling up your sleeves and thinking about how did all this wind up on a foundation or foundations is it started out as source, right? And you can go back to source and you can query this stuff, but you did then need to kind of thread the needle, like, well, what commit actually is running on the foundation, right? And so what's running
Mhm.
on the foundation is lagging behind current development and things that are, planned to be rolled out into production. So you could absolutely approach this with the fact of like maybe scanning your source and doing things. And Deshaun, you've been wonderful in the community, turning us on to, all kinds of tools and techniques and practices around, you know, bringing an application from a particular version to a new version, some of the challenges that you might face. And if you haven't checked out Deshaun's work, man, you're missing out.
I'm here.
You're
I got
absolutely
cheat
missing
codes and I got
out.
friends. Like
Yeah.
we've been doing this long enough, right? With Spring Boot 3.0 and Spring Framework 6, we had the engineering team at the Spring team made the decision to rebase to Java 17. So Java 8 was supported for a long time. Java 8's been around for 10 years. And they made the decision that in order to do some of the more advanced things that we need as a community, we needed to make a move. So Java 17 is the new baseline. You can use Java 17 for a long time, but Java 21 has
Hmm.
been out for almost 6 months.
That's right.
Java's getting a new version every 6 months. Spring Boot's getting a new version every 6 months just to keep up. So
Hmm.
why wouldn't you move forward? But we had this big thing, right, with Spring Boot 3 and Spring Framework 6 where customers like, wait, we can't use the same Java version. We want to do all the things that Josh is doing in the conferences and on the videos. We want to do all that, but we don't think we can upgrade yet. Like, we don't know how. So
Yeah.
I've been spending a lot of time doing that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy to help.
So, what would it be like if you could collect the source, i.e., your POM file, without having to go back to source? Like you could actually,
What is
for
actually
the
running,
application that's
right?
running, right? For the applications that are running on the foundation, get to the thing that, the actual, where it started without having to go back to source. And that's what this is doing. It's
Yep.
basically querying the droplets, unpacking them, collecting and organizing, and it's capable of producing a jar file with all the applications POM files. So long as these apps, again, were built with Maven, you will have a POM file that you can reference. So
But
that's
if it
what
was
this is
built with
doing. It's
Gradle,
nice.
there'll be a build.gradle,
No,
right? No?
Gradle will not, like when you do this, so far as I have seen with Spring and stuff, unless you do some custom work,
Okay.
your out of box experience will not embed a Maven or a Gradle file in the artifact when you're
Okay.
using Gradle.
All right. Well, that might be
Yeah.
something because I like this model. That might be something that we look. Right. The nice thing about build packs is they're open source and we can submit PRs, but that might be something that might be worthwhile to submit as a PR. So
Yeah.
noted.
You're raising up a thread here. Let's make sure we
All right.
hold on to that, which
I'm going
is
to write it down.
this whole idea of build packs and where this work should really be done, as opposed to where it's being done right now in this just what I'm revealing. Um, so great, you can get one of these. What do you do with it? Well, you can unpack it, and one of the things also that our company provides is this Spring Health Assessment. There's a website that you can go to where, and Deshaun has done many videos on this, where he's shown where you can take, your POM file, run a command, get the Spring dependencies, take those Spring dependencies, upload them to the health assessment, and get a picture of the health and well-being of your Spring app, right? I'm not here to tell you about that today. I'm kind of here to tell you about one, just getting visibility on what's in your estate. And then what you can do with that once you have it, you can do, that, right? Or if you're really in need of help, you can talk to us. We'll absolutely come and help you out with some services, or maybe even a workshop.
One of our uh, now world famous platform engineers from the Cloud Foundry ecosystems is like, it's literally something I've been asking for since 2016.
Yeah,
We didn't know. We didn't prioritize it properly. But here we are. Like it's not too late.
yeah, it's not. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my next. So all this sort of tees up like, hey, if we really want to get a full picture of our estate, can make this bigger here and get this over here. What does this look like in terms of maybe really getting visibility in your entire estate?
Sorry, I messed up.
So what we should be looking at is kind of like 3-4 boxes, right? And it starts over here. Do I have my laser? I need to get my laser again. There's a collection of repositories, GitHub repositories. It's out here at github.com CF Tool Suite. And there are a number of repositories here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Right, so I just got this collected as of last night. All this had been hanging out on my my own repo, but or rather, I was the owner of these projects, but I've since delegated ownership to this organization, of which I'm the owner. But anyhow, I'd like some help, so we'll talk
I'm
about
here to
that
help.
later.
I'm volunteering.
Yeah.
This is all great work.
So these are the repos. So we'll go back to the diagram, and basically what you'll do if you're a platform operator and you're interested in getting all this hoisted in your environment is, well, you'll clone all these. Actually, you'll fork them, right? Because you're going to want to do stuff with them yourself, all right? And once you've built them and CF pushed them, they'll land on a foundation. I said for illustration purposes, maybe you'll create an organization called Observability and a space called CF Tool Suite, and you'll install these applications. You'll push these applications and bind them, to these service instances. So Butler, as we saw on the last picture, works with a database. Hoover, what is Hoover? Hoover is nothing more than a registry and a vacuum cleaner, if you will, of all the data that is coming from one or more butlers, right? So you have a butler on one foundation, a butler on another foundation, a butler on another foundation, for as many foundations as you are operating, right?
Yep.
And Hoover will vacuum clean all of that, all those butler instances up and aggregate, as well as provide the details across all your foundations. And then what is Hoover UI? Hoover UI is basically the visual presentation of that information.
And it's great, right? Again, this is a tool that it never really kind of got bundled with, but a lot of the community was using because it's valuable. Doing Cloud Foundry at scale, it works.
Yeah. So great. You've done all this work. You've stitched it together. You've installed it on the platform. What do you get? So here's something, I'm kind of jumping straight ahead, but what you're seeing here is a couple of foundations have been
Can you bump
brought
up
in.
the font a little bit?
Bump up the font. Let me do that.
Let's see if we can.
All right.
I have my
So
glasses.
this is getting kind of like a distribution of the Spring dependencies across foundations for all the applications that are deployed. Right? So you can see the frequency is the occurrences of that version of Spring, whatever dependency it was, right?
Yep.
Organized this way. And we can start to see from a distribution standpoint, what are my boot apps? Right? So here are all the different versions of Spring Boot that are running. It happens that we're running a pretty old version of Spring here, right? We can go find out what that is here in a moment. I'll show you where that is in a moment. But, this is a very quick and dirty way for you to understand what's happening, what's running across all your foundations.
That's nice.
Right?
Now, one of the things that I've ran into out in the field, and you actually might have been there, was the Cloud Foundry platform engineering team was like, hey, we would like to upgrade to latest and greatest version of Cloud Foundry, but I've got some of these old versions of Spring Boot that are tied to old Spring Cloud config. right? The old Spring Cloud services. And I can't upgrade this foundation with these apps in this old version because they won't be compatible. They won't work, right? We have these upgrades and we had to rebase to 17. And these apps will not work on the new foundation. So please update.
Mhm.
This would really help tell that story. Gives them
Yeah.
a little stick and a carrot, depending on how you
Yeah.
phrase it, I guess. But
So this is like your summary view, right?
yeah,
Now, the detail view is, well, I want to know what are the applications that are running and on which foundations are they running, right? So you can see here, right?
so
Foundation, organization, space, applications, the droplet that has this information, and then here are the dependencies, right? So these
very
are the
nice.
Spring dependencies that are running. So I can go, let me look at all my boots. And this is where I've had some trouble with my filter not working so well. It's demo God's not happy with me. I might have to fix this, but let's go
I
look for
learned
that
from
2.0.
Cora that it's either a product demo or a
Yeah,
troubleshooting demo. It's going to be a demo,
yeah,
but we just don't know which one until we get into it.
yeah. So here's that app that's running Spring Boot 2.10, right? Right here. Here's a guy that we might want to be giving some love to by bringing it up to date, right?
Yep.
2.10. When was that released? Like, was it like 4 years ago or something?
Ooh.
Um,
Oh, no, longer than that. Like
yeah,
2018, 2017, 2018, maybe. I'm
something
going to
like
go look.
that.
I can't not know. Spring Boot, I'm going to look at the calendar. It's here. Spring Boot 2.1 was released 2018, October 30th, 2018.
Yeah. So that's like, are companies running versions that old? Yeah,
They
probably.
are. Like let's just throw it out there that
Yeah.
between you and me, there are companies that are still running Java 5. We're trying to help, but this right here, this is a safe place. There are
Yeah.
companies running older versions of things. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, but not all of it is Spring related. But we we know that there's problems, right?
Mhm.
And it's not that the bits were bad when you put them out there. It's just that the rest of the world has changed. So we
Yeah.
want to fix things, right? We find things, and the bad actors keep doing bad things. But we have these fixed. So whatever you were doing in Spring Boot 2.1, you can still do in Spring Boot 3.2. You might just have to upgrade your Java version, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal,
Right.
right? Maintainable code is important. So yeah, we have an option. We have a path forward.
Yeah. So one other thing, so that's kind of like drilling into, what are my Spring apps, right? But if I zoom out a little bit, um, you know, here is like the demographics, right? So you've got, how many foundations are under management, right, by CF Tool Suite? How many account users, service account users do we have, right? I can drill into applications and I can say how many applications are running, how many instances of those applications are running or stopped or crashed, right? How much memory is used, how much disk is consumed. I can get a breakdown by build pack. I can get a breakdown by stack. So if you know anything about stacks, FS4 is basically Ubuntu 2204, I believe, is the
I think
backing
you're
or all
right.
that behind the stack. And then velocity. So, like we always talk about this, high performing organizations are the ones that are releasing code more rapidly. They're doing it more than just once a month, once a quarter, once a year. They're doing it daily, maybe even hourly. And so this will give you, some perspective as to, kind of
Oops.
buckets of time frame. How often are you CF pushing, right? Likewise, we have some data around service instances. So what are the service instances that are in use in the different plans, and also velocity, which is to say how often are they being created, right? Um, so that's kind of like in a nutshell what this is meant to provide, and that's really what I wanted to show and talk about. But there's kind of like a sideshow to all of this, and I'll stop sharing. Any
All right.
questions or anything
Like
like that you've seen, Deshaun, that
I
you?
just I want to say thanks for your
Yeah.
continued work on CF Butler. You recently moved to a new org on GitHub saying, hey, like, I'm doing some cool stuff here. Maybe we could get some help. So I'm here for that. Let's do it. And again, we already talked. Like, we want our Spring community, whether you're on Cloud Foundry or not, we want our Spring community to be taking advantage of all the latest and greatest, right? People that are in our circle, I want them to be in the green on the latest versions, getting all the benefits and doing all the great things, getting all the developer experience, taking advantage of things like Spring AI, for
Yeah.
example. You got to kind of be willing to move, and if you're constantly looking back, that's hard. So
That's true.
this tool, again, for our Cloud Foundry ecosystem that's running Spring and .NET and Python and all the others, we want to help them to move forward faster. And
Yeah.
what I've got now is I've got a tool that I can go in and I can demonstrate, right? I have to have access. We have to give CF Butler access, but we can demonstrate where you're at. We can give them a picture, right? They've got all these other dashboards and tools in place, but this one's special, right? This is really going to help them figure out where to start.
Yeah.
Like, how bad is it? The other thing I think we could do here is, because I've got that list of dependencies and we talked about the Spring Health Assessment, uh, couldn't I pull that list of dependencies and do the same grep against that list of dependencies and deliver a char? When you had your list, your overview of which Spring Boot versions were there, the colors on the right side that showed the different versions, I wanted those colors to be like green, you're on 3.2,
Right.
yellow, you're on 3.0,
Yeah.
right? And do like the color scale, and
Yeah.
red, you're on 2.1, right?
Right.
That's something we could do though. Like, we have
Yeah, we
now
could absolutely do
a
that. I love
channel
that. Love that
and
idea.
a service to do that, as just one other thing that we could do to help the Cloud Foundry ecosystem
For sure.
identify where to go and how to get started.
Yeah. So, I'll end maybe with, did you know that all the applications that comprise CF Tool Suite were themselves implemented with Java, Spring Boot, and all the Spring ecosystem? Like, that's basically dog fooding, but in a good way. Like, I love Spring. I love Cloud Foundry. It's the reason why I'm and continue to be here. Like, it's the reason I started back when we were Pivotal, rode through to VMware, and now at Broadcom. Like,
Yep.
it was revelational to me back uh, when I got wind of it.
It's a great time to be a Spring developer for sure.
Sure.
And if you are a Spring developer that gets to land your apps on Cloud Foundry, life is really, really good, right? Life is
Yeah.
really, really good right now. You don't have to worry about rack bytes and all those kind of things. You're not dealing with all that stuff. Like, some of these kids don't know how good they got it these days, right? All the things that they don't have to do because they've got Cloud Foundry. So yeah, it's a great time. And I'll say this, like, Spring Boot, it makes development easier and more enjoyable, right? When you have all the patterns, like, they're laying it out. Like, here's some things you might want to try. Here's some patterns that we've seen the rest of the ecosystem use. These might make your life easier. You don't have to come up with new patterns, right? When I find
Mm.
myself thinking of a new way of doing things, I like, so you're telling me that the Spring ecosystem hasn't thought of this before?
All right.
I don't believe that. I'm not that guy. I don't believe that. They probably have thought of it and they know why not to do what I was thinking of.
Oh yeah.
I want to ride the ride. I want to stand on the shoulders of all those before us that make our life easy and make it fun. I like to get to production, right? We all like to get to production. That's why I like Spring Boot. That's why I like Cloud Foundry. Get to production fast with joy,
For sure.
securely.
For sure. I know we're coming up on the amount of time. I see we're about like 35 minutes. But if the last thing
Yeah.
that I would leave the community with, and this is as much a unveiling as an ask for help,
Yeah.
is, back when I said all this stuff can be deployed on Cloud Foundry, well, it can also be deployed on your laptop, right?
Tell me more.
So you can do all that, right?
Yep.
There are some interesting findings that I'm having right now that I'm trying to make better. Is like, what does it mean when you're running stuff on your laptop with the compute resources that you have? versus running those same applications in Cloud Foundry. And if you're an operator, you're responsible for curating that runtime environment for your consumer
Mm-hmm.
and the operational characteristics of that runtime environment in terms of compute, right, and
Yep.
storage. So, like when I hoist an app as a container, I'm getting a slice of that available compute to run my app. And I can do some things, like I can tune the disk available and the memory available. I can't tune the CPU, so far as I'm aware. Somebody out there that's smarter than me, please correct me on that.
Depending on how we're
Uh,
doing it, right? Depending on
yeah.
how we're doing it.
And so applications have their own idiosyncrasies in terms of how they operate, the algorithms, the logic that's used. Some are efficient, some are poorly done. I've opted, right or wrong, when started building this stuff, by going all in with reactive, right? So that's one programming model within the Spring ecosystem, right?
Yep.
And done it like soup to nuts. Like everything is non-blocking. There are no
Excellent.
blocking,
Fantastic.
uh, artifacts in this. So that presents its own challenges because then you need to worry about things like back pressure and exception handling, and the list goes on. And so that's where folks, that's a call for help. The droplet inspection mode is very expensive because you can imagine a droplet can be anywhere from tens to hundreds of megabytes in size. And you
Yep.
might have thousands of applications that you're parsing, Java applications maybe that you're running. How efficient are you doing that? I've tried to do that. I'm seeing it being done very well locally. When I get it up into Cloud Foundry, stuff breaks.
Got it.
So the promise of all this is in getting it tuned so that it can scale on Cloud Foundry.
That's the key, right? That's what we want, right? We want. So I was having this conversation earlier today. My primary target is Cloud Foundry. That's the nice place. That's the happy place. But you talked about doing it on your laptop. I'll be honest. I use Kubernetes locally on this machine. On this machine over here, right over there, I use Karifi. Sometimes I really like the CF push, CF create service. I like to be able to do these things, right? Once
Right,
you've had it, like it's hard to back away. And
right.
Karifi gives me kind of that same feel, that same
Yeah,
ability, especially with
yeah,
what we're doing.
yeah.
So I like that. And yeah, like this path to production, Cloud Foundry is the place where I want to go. So that is the goal. I put in one of our friends. Oops, I didn't even paste it. Close friend, dear friend. I love Josh Long. He wrote a
Yeah,
book called
yeah,
Reactive Spring, and this is a
yeah.
book that if we're wanting to dig in and try to figure these things out, that's where I'm going to start. So
I've got another book by another dear friend, Ole DeKuka, Reactive Programming in Spring 5. I looked at that when I was doing this many years ago, and
excellent.
it's still a Bible. Like I consult it from time to time. But yeah, like it's good stuff. It's just you can really go down rabbit holes,
Yep.
and this is one of those cases where like tuning, I've okay, got to pull up JVisual VM. I'm going to run this. I'm going to memory profile my app. I'm going to
Yep.
watch the sawtooth pattern and see, things happening. And how do I do that in Cloud Foundry? I would love to know how to do that. That's another ask. How do I
Yeah.
connect so that I can profile and see what's happening there?
Another
So not for
consideration.
this show, but another show maybe.
Yeah. Another thing
um,
that has happened, right? When Cloud Foundry started, the size of our build packs was different. We could do less, and as we've moved forward, and that's grown, we have more options in the build pack space. But these batch type of exercises, right? We could talk for days about what is the right way to do this thing, this CF Butler that's going to stand up, go do something, and then spin down. Because in my head, I think of Spring Cloud Data Flow. These things that are, hey, I got this list of foundations that I want to run through. I got this list of droplets that I want to run through, and I want to do some inspection. And yeah, if something stops, I want to be able to redo it.
yeah,
So some of these batch processing concepts are built into Spring Batch, and Spring Cloud Data Flow. So we've got some exploration to do. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm going to take a look at your code. I put the
Yeah.
repository, I put a link to the repository here.
Cool.
So, so maybe we can get some help. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Josh's book,
Oh yeah.
and
Awesome.
I want to do this again. I want to do this
You just
again.
reminded me of one more thing.
Yeah,
The stuff that we put to the table. I'm going to bring it back for the
Gradle,
attention.
build
Like,
packs.
why is this the way that we should be doing it? Which
Is
is
this the
parsing
way that we should be
droplets.
doing it?
And some very smart person in our organization, Alexander Roman, if I'm not mistaken, I think he
I'm a
was
big
the one I
fan.
should attribute
A big
this to.
fan.
But
Man, we're surrounded by smart people.
he said, "Why aren't we doing this in the build pack? Like, is there something during the build where we could do the very things you're looking for, put that off to the side, and then maybe, just maybe, have an actuator responsible for surfacing this information? So now instead of crawling droplets, you're just asking
Provide
each
all of the
actuator
information, the
endpoint.
metadata on an actuator endpoint. That
Yep.
a lovely idea.
Yeah.
That's a lovely. Now here's the cool thing is I've got some experience with build packs. The Cobalt build pack. Maybe you've heard of the Cobalt build pack. That was me. That was this guy. But also the ARM64 build pack. So I'm comfortable here. And what you're talking about, I think this is doable. But I don't even think it needs a build pack. I think we could do this. We could do it in the build pack, but we could also do it with a starter and a Maven plugin. We have options. We could definitely do this. This is something to explore, where we could expose the metadata that we would like to expose
Right.
on an actuator. We can expose more information, and we have that info endpoint. We know how to expose info, and I
Right.
believe that we've
Exactly.
done like the POM version, but I don't think I've ever exposed dependency versions
Right.
on the info endpoint. I think I've
Right.
exposed the Spring Boot version, but I don't think I've exposed like the dependency tree there. But we have options. Like we have tons of great tools. This is something that we should circle back on.
Yeah.
This has been great.
Yeah.
I
I've
always
had
feel like
fun.
I get upgraded when we get to hang out. Uh, this is a great demo. I'm happy for all the work that you've done, but I want to circle back.
Yeah. Let's do
Maybe
that.
maybe we can demo something over on the Cloud Foundry Weekly, one of the
I'm
upcoming
happy to do
episodes.
that.
That'd
Yeah.
be great.
Happy to do that.
So
Awesome.
this is
Thanks,
wonderful.
Sean. I appreciate you making some time and space here
No,
for this.
thank you. I'm the one that getting leveled up here.
All
So
right.
thanks a bunch. Keep up the
All
good
right.
work, and yeah, I'm looking forward to doing this again. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks. See you
Yeah,
all.
see ya.